What does it mean to say that entrepreneurship is storytelling? It's a lifestyle, a life of embracing new things, and always an interesting story.
This is the Economics for Entrepreneurs podcast. Entrepreneurs are economic heroes. They improve others' lives with preferred products and services, innovation, and value. We offer you the knowledge and tools to make your entrepreneurial journey a successful one by building a beautiful business. Now, here's your host, Hunter Hastings.
Hi, Hunter Hastings here. When we use the word entrepreneurship, we mean many things. For example, entrepreneurship is an economic role. We recognize that entrepreneurs drive the growing, vibrant, dynamic, free market economy. We know they start, nurture, grow, and manage businesses that thrive. They improve others' lives through their ethic of service and betterment. Equally, entrepreneurship is a life choice, a lifestyle, a life lived in the embrace of possibilities. Entrepreneurs are individuals who make this proactive choice, perhaps solo, perhaps with one or more partners, perhaps with a team, perhaps at a particular stage in life, after a career or parenthood. Or perhaps you'll take what we find out in this podcast is called the two jobs approach, a way to maximize your current possibilities while at the same time exploring and developing new ones. That's a typical entrepreneurial life. While the what of entrepreneurship is interacting with customers and partners and vendors and channels in the internet and bankers and cash flow, interacting with the world, in fact, the who of entrepreneurship comes from inside. One of the reasons you choose entrepreneurship is because of who you are. Entrepreneurship is in the mirror. It's you. There's a tradition in entrepreneurship research called effectuation, where the entrepreneurial journey starts with answers to the questions, who am I, what do I know, and whom do I know? Your persona, your knowledge, and your network are your opening resources. You can build from there, without a specific goal perhaps, or more accurately, with evolving goals that change as your knowledge and network and available resources change. Today we'll hear from a 20-year entrepreneur about his journey, his continuous embrace of new things that aren't quite yet comfortable, about talent, about empathy, and about designing to make people smile, and about storytelling as the ultimate branding. Allan Branch is hard to categorize as anything other than an entrepreneur. You might call him a software company CEO, or a real estate investor, or a brewery owner, or a sailor, or dad. You can find him on YouTube as a video storyteller. The best way to think of him is as a mentor who can help you think about what kind of entrepreneurial life you might want to lead. Allan, welcome to Economics for Entrepreneurs.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, we're delighted that you can be here as a guest. We have a lot to learn from you today. We often tell what we call entrepreneurial journey stories, and they're all instructive. But I think you have a lot of experience to share and a lot of philosophy about entrepreneurship. So we're looking forward to that. I picked up a phrase from your, is it LinkedIn, where you say, I don't even know what I do for a living anymore, which sounds to me like a motto for the Economics for Entrepreneurs philosophy. So tell us about that for a second. What triggered that little phrase?
Well, I'm 40 years old this year. And so for the past 20 years, I've kind of had my quote unquote career. And there's a sort of a common thread through the whole thing, but there's been so many different jobs. I still do so many different jobs during the day. If someone said, what do you do for a living? It's a much bigger explanation or answer than a one or two line LinkedIn summary. Yeah. So that's why I don't really even know what I do anymore.
Well, it's an old-fashioned question, probably.
Oh, yeah.
We like to start our journeys just with a little personal history. You're in Panama City. You live there. A lot of your creativity is focused there. So tell us about your early days in Panama City and school and around town. And another LinkedIn phrase you used is you were interested in nothing and everything as you grew up. So tell us about that.
Sure, sure. I didn't realize you're going to look at my LinkedIn profile, which I don't take very seriously. But, if you really wanted to go back, my grandfather started restaurants in the 1940s and early 1950s, restaurants and car washes in Panama City and Pensacola and Tallahassee and Columbus, Georgia. He passed away when he was 36. My dad and my uncles and my aunt inherited these restaurants. My grandmother ran them for years and years. So I grew up in entrepreneurship. At family gatherings, at the dinner table, we didn't talk about politics. We didn't watch any sports. We talked about entrepreneurship, how the businesses were going. It wasn't like I wasn't given like a lesson on entrepreneurship. I just was in it. We were, as a kid, my dad would take us to the car washes, the self-service car washes after dinner. We would count the money. We would wash the car wash down, pick up the trash. That was just how we lived. And I sort of carried those on into my adult life. As I got a job after college and I tried to tell them how to run their business, I realized that I needed to control my own destiny. I was not a very good employee. Maybe I have a problem with authority. I don't really know. But started businesses. Even in college, I went to school for design, and I would take, this was 2000-ish, and I would start getting clients in my for design, logos and brochures and websites. And my fellow students would say, "Who told you could do that?" And I would say, "Who told me I couldn't do it?" I've never been waiting for permission to do anything. And that's just kind of how I grew up. I thought at age 13, I was firing employees at the car wash and telling them what to do, grown adults. And I thought that was normal. I thought every 13-year-old thought they were a manager at a car wash. Didn't know that was an unusual way to grow up, and that kind of transitioned to that as an adult, and really didn't realize I grew up in an interesting way until here recently. Since then, we've started software companies and all kinds of stuff like that.
We've said here in the past that the best way to learn entrepreneurship is around the kitchen table, which is kind of a metaphor for what you're talking about. You grow up with it, you learn the values, you think of it as normal, and that's certainly what we'd like to achieve, I think. So you went from design to software? Is that an easy transition? Was that, quote, normal, unquote, or how did that little leap take place?
Well, I've never felt like I fit in anywhere. In design school in college, I was really at the tail end of true print design in college. It was kind of the internet had just sort of reached colleges, and they were teaching website design just in its infancy. But my focus was print design. I realized when I started out as a marketing major. In the marketing department, I realized I was artsier. I loved art more. I was in art club in high school. I realized I was artsier than the marketing kids. When I went to the art department and was doing art and print design, I realized I was nerdier and more businessy than the graphic design people, because these graphic design students would design things and I would say, the copywriting is terrible. And I had all this feedback on the business that they were designing for. And I realized I had more of a business mindset than the art kids did or the graphic design kids. So I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. That transition to software design sort of happened because I realized there wasn't much money in print design. People were willing to pay more for websites in the early 2000s. And then slowly realized people that designed websites in the early 2000s, I was nerdier than they were. So I liked software design. Software design is a lot more about psychology and how people interact with things. It's like architecture. It's like architecture design, but in pixels. It's how do people interact with software, and just slowly kind of. That's my whole life, right? It's when I become an adult, I'll figure out what I want to do. So it's always kind of slowly adapting to what I find interesting, and that's been the sort of the story the past 20 years.
Just as an aside, Steve Jobs said that his most important class and most important learning at college was calligraphy.
It's true.
And he learned to love the visualization and as you say, the way people interact with graphics on a screen. So there's a direct connection there.
Absolutely.
So I'm missing some of the connections here, I think, but your resume says you founded a software company and you stumbled on it. I've just learned from you, you'd been doing it all your life, this idea of two jobs, the generation of consulting revenue while building software. Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, because that's how I grew up, and I didn't even realize it. It's always a question of how do you learn something, nature versus nurture. Are you given that by birth, or did you learn it through experience? And what I learned through experience was watching my parents work two jobs, and not ever saying I work two jobs. They would have a full service car wash, and they would be starting a new car wash, and at the same time of running the other car wash. So you're building and you're designing another car wash when you already have a full load at the other car wash. Full workload. And so that's just how we grew up. It's always, you do one job and then you're always, the path of growth and the path for a business and the path of, career change often requires a side hustle or a second job, one that you're not making money from or when you're learning and one that you're making your money from. So that's what it doesn't feel normal or safe to me. Entrepreneurship's it's a different assessment on a risk. And it feels risky to me to work one job and watch football all weekend and watch Netflix all night. That feels risky. It feels less risky to me to work two jobs.
Perhaps this concept of a job, which is in the culture, is something that's holding us back, that there is only one. We only do one job. Maybe that's...
It's all made up, right? It's like who made up the 40-hour work week? Who made up the construct of one job the rest of your life? These are all just constructs we've made up in the past, 50 years.
We are talking to Allan Branch today about entrepreneurship as a lifestyle. It is a never-ending journey in pursuit of new skills and new knowledge with which you are becoming more and more, but never entirely, comfortable. We want to help. Check out our Austrian Entrepreneurship Journey course, which reviews the journey steps from the customer-centric, value-centric Austrian business model point of view. Go to e4epod.com/journey. That's the letter E, the number 4, the letter E, pod.com/journey. Now back to Allan. So one of your products was, you called it less accounting. Which you funded the development of that out of the cash flow from your billable hours. So take us further on the journey. How did less accounting emerge?
Yeah, so 2006-ish or so, software had started moving to the internet. It was kind of traditionally there was desktop software that you would pay a whole lot of money for. You would install that on your desktop in your operating system. And around that sort of time period, you saw software moving to the internet under a thing called software as a service, where you pay monthly for software. Now it's completely normal. But at the time, when I had my small business, the only software there was QuickBooks, and it just felt like it was so big and cumbersome. And, I know small business and I know accounting fairly well. I don't know tax prep, but I know bookkeeping and accounting very well. And, I had these skill sets of designing software and building software with a team. And it just felt natural to work on something that felt like there was a need for. And so over the course of, I guess, probably 5 years, my business partner and I at the time would spend our day, and we had a whole team of people working on client projects where we were building software for people, HR software, online directories, websites, credit card processing apps, all kinds of stuff. And on the nights and weekends, we were working on less accounting. That's what fueled our passion. We would take money we made from our consulting job and hire developers just to work on less accounting with us. And, over the course of 5 years, that less accounting app, we launched it, and you're juggling two jobs. You're juggling clients and sales leads and payroll of one company, and you're judging a whole other set of books and payroll and customer support with another. And you're hiring people on one side, and that app started growing. It didn't grow at a rapid pace. People think that success is some overnight wonder hockey stick, but it's not. Success takes 10 years. And we found that over the course of 5, 6, 7 years that this product became bigger and bigger and bigger, and it became evident that's what we should be working on, is doing less client work. And so we transitioned from a consultancy with a product to a product company, and we just had less accounting. We ended up selling less accounting, I believe, out in year 11, after we just grew tired of working on the same product over and over again. And we moved on.
You said that you had a sense that existing software like QuickBooks had problems. We always say in our theory that entrepreneurs look for a customer dissatisfaction and then they respond to that. Did you get input from other people, or was it your sense of the problems with software at the time?
Certainly, my personal accountant had some negative feedback towards QuickBooks. We knew lots of entrepreneurs who didn't use QuickBooks or had no books. Even still, there's plenty of entrepreneurs who look successful that have no bookkeeping software. They're running 3 years behind on their taxes and all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah. But we didn't do any major market feedback. The biggest thing with people who are wanting to be entrepreneurs is analysis paralysis, is having too much data to help them make a decision paralyzes them in their decision. And so, you're kind of in between analysis paralysis is being foolhardy, and right. So somewhere in between there is the right time to make a decision for an entrepreneur, and knowing when to make the decision. That's also a skill set as well.
Did you have a design process then that we'll do this first, we'll do this second? Here's the most important feature. Here's the next most important feature. Did you have what they'd call a roadmap today?
Absolutely. We never had an official roadmap or business plan where you spec out a year in advance. Much like entrepreneurship, you kind of know where you want to be in 6 months. You can document that and make tasks towards that goal. But knowing how to be nimble, these larger companies, your one advantage of when you're trying to compete with a larger company is being nimble, is being able to make a decision quickly. If QuickBooks wants to release a feature, that takes them a year or two to decide through all the business analysts and the customer support people, they need to build this feature. So if you are a small company competing with a large company, your only advantage is you personally and how fast you can pivot and make decisions. They can't keep you. If you chase their tails, chase behind them, you're going to get crushed because they have way more money than you do. Way more support and advertising. So you're balancing being nimble, but having focus, right? That's the hardest part in entrepreneurship, is knowing what to work on, when to work on it, how long to work on it.
Here's another question about matching practice to theory, Allan. We talk about entrepreneurs assembling resources. It's a conceptual look at how you get from the idea to the marketplace. And you've talked about, hey, I needed to hire developers. Presumably you needed computers, you needed software to write software, you needed to build the infrastructure to be a SaaS company, software as a service company. Tell us a little bit about how that felt, how you describe that assembly of resources.
Yeah, so I think there's a freelancer, and a freelancer is sort of a solo, I do everything, I do it all myself. Then you have sort of an owner-operator style entrepreneur who is assembling teams and growing things. And so delegation of tasks, right? And assembling a team around you so that a freelancer, and there's nothing wrong with being there's amazing freelancers, but if you want to be an entrepreneur and build a business around you, you have to attract talent, keep talent, and know how to delegate things. And so it's almost like being a conductor in an orchestra, right? They probably aren't the best violin player, but they know what a great violin player sounds like. They're not the best tuba player, but they can find a tuba player, and they know how to assemble this team and make them sound in harmony. And it's almost like a great business is a jazz band, and they have these sets of rules and processes within this jazz band, but they don't follow a script. And great entrepreneurs spot talent. Talent can be anything. A designer. We have talented bartenders at our brewery, but being able to spot someone with talent and know what they want in life to keep them around. Because churn of employees is also a big killer in businesses. But I feel like we've done a pretty good job attracting talent and people who've been around us. I have a developer who's been with me for 12 years. Videographer who's been with me for 11. There's also been plenty of people who have fired or quit and those sort of things too. But yeah, entrepreneurs need to know how to spot talent and attract it and kind of get everyone playing on the same sheet of music.
A quick note. Did you know that we provide supplemental materials for each podcast? Listening to and understanding the key takeaways from our expert guests helps you think better about building a more beautiful business. Taking direct action and implementing these strategies is when the real work begins. Take a concrete, immediate step to implementing a better business model today by downloading the show notes and business tool we've created for this episode. Visit Mises.org/E4EPod. That's MISES.org/E4EPOD and click on today's episode. Now, back to our interview.
Let's just go there for a second about talent. So there's a Gallup personality survey called Strength Finders, and there's a version of it called Entrepreneurial Strength Finders, and they talk about talent, and they define that as a skill, a particular skill, something you're really good at, plus personality/motivation. And that's those two things together become talent. Do you think of it that way, or have you a different definition of talent and how you spot it?
My background is playing football, high school and college, and I would much rather be led and play with teammates who maybe aren't the best talent, but they have the right attitude. There is a toxicity if you bring it in within your team that will affect every wrinkle of the business. And so you can be great at what you do, but if your personality doesn't go vibe with the team, then everything falls apart. And so, judging talent more than just the skill set you need. I like to say too, we, especially with the brewery that we just opened, it's, there are plenty, we want to hire adults, and there are plenty of people who look like adults from the outside, but when they participate in your business, they are children. Their minds are like children. Mm-hmm. And so anyone who's been in an environment where your coworker acts like a child understands what that means. And so that's the hardest part to assess. That's something the resume does not tell you. That's something LinkedIn is not going to tell you. It's what is that person's personality? And that's one reason why I like to create businesses that are transparent, that talk about what we work on and why we work on it, because you will self-eliminate people who don't understand that company's vibe, that soul, that mission. If you're talking about it, the people who are not right for the company fit will not come and apply, and the right people will be attracted to you like moth to light. Mm-hmm. So judging talent is another one of the hardest things. Entrepreneurship's hard, but definitely hiring and judging talent's really hard as well.
Let's go back to the journey for a second. So tell us about Less Accounting post-launch, and in the 10 or 11 years that you had it, did the journey go according to plan or as expected, or what were some of the deviations that you found?
Oh, it was a cakewalk, and we made tons of money, and everything was easy. No, it was a slog. Every business is, from the outside, looks like it's running smoothly and everything's easy. It's like a duck. You ever heard the analogy of a duck? When the duck is swimming, it looks like it just glides through the water. But under the water, where you can't see, it's kicking like hell.
Right.
And that's one of my favorite analogies, because really it is. Every business is treading water, and you're learning all kinds of new stuff all the time. Less Accounting, we made so many mistakes, hiring, spending money in the wrong places. And it did well, but did it crush QuickBooks, or was it a massive success on that scale? It was not. That wasn't our path. We were a lifestyle business, self-funded. We didn't go after any venture capitalist funding, so we were never on the cover of Forbes. We were never on. I guess we were on some major news outlets, but we weren't ever, in the eyes of Silicon Valley, which is, you take a whole lot of money, you go spend a whole lot of money as fast as you can and acquire customers at a loss. You're competing with businesses. Xero, which is Xero.com. They lose $200 million a year. They spend $100 to acquire a $50 customer. My opinion is that's not really a business. I can, you hand me $20, I'll hand you 10 back all day long. And so we were building a business, a profitable business that we enjoy. It's a lifestyle business. Lots of mistakes along the way. Lots of places where you feel like quitting too. You just feel like, everyone around you, Xero, QuickBooks, FreshBooks, Wave Accounting, Harvest, those are all great accounting products. You feel like they're all kicking your butt. These are all normal things. Self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Those are all feelings that entrepreneurs have that they don't talk about it. And everybody has them. So it was an absolute slog, and we did it for 11 and a half years. And It's not like we quit early. We quit with a profit. We sold it with a profitable business, did well, transferred a bunch of money to real estate. And, that was a good chapter of my life.
But you kept your software development company. It's called Less Everything. Is that right?
Yes. So Less Everything was the parent company of Less Accounting. And Less Everything, the name sounds unusual. It was my business partner's idea. Software at the time was all about building things big, taking lots of money, hiring lots of employees, having a big office, big. And we really love 37 Signals, which is in Chicago. They own Basecamp, and they talked about being small and embracing the small. And you don't need to have big offices, just be profitable. And so Less Everything came around from us wanting to buck the trend of big funding, big losses, big offices, big employees, all that stuff. So after we sold Less Accounting, we had built up a substantial following of what we were working on in the software community, and especially the B2B software community. And when we sold Less Accounting, it was a big announcement. We were going to take a year or two off and enjoy ourselves, but we had so many clients wanting to work with us, we went back to work. And so even in businesses, when you do really, really well and you have big paychecks and selling your company, you just you go right back to work because that's what feels natural. So
I've heard the expression from a software developer of constructive laziness, which is, it's tongue in cheek, but it's that, hey, if you can find a place to start that's already been built, you can get to another better place pretty quickly, and it's being smart about not doing too much work. So maybe
absolutely. The best developers are not ones reinventing the wheel. Most software developers are not working on ground truth technology for automated cars. We're not working for SpaceX. And so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Most of the technology is there, and we're lacing things together and not having to create new technology. So embracing that laziness. Yeah.
Yep. Or as the economist would call it, accumulated knowledge. It's
there you go.
Benefit. Yeah. So one of the nice things on your website for Less Everything is that you say you create apps that make people smile. So tell us about that. How do you make people smile?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So there's always specifically in software design, there's a learning curve of any product. They come to your website for a need. They found you for a reason. They're looking to your website. They sign up because they're curious and because they feel like you're going to solve a problem for them. And you get into a product and you start kind of feeling around. You feel lost. You don't really know what to do. And there's usually a moment, a stickiness, where someone goes, "Oh, that's how this works." When we both started using the Zencastr, I saw our tracks started moving with our audio. And I thought, oh, that's how that works. There's a moment, a smile where you feel like you've kind of grasped something and you understand what's going on. That's what we want to get to. We want to get to that moment as fast as we can. As UI designers, user interface or user experience designers, we want to get to that moment as fast as possible. The software is so easy to design for moments that don't have emotion. You're trying to get them to this feature, to get them to do this thing, but you're not thinking about the human reaction of software. And one of my favorite quotes, I just heard this the other day, Hunter, it was by John Taffer. And John Taffer does Bar Rescue, if you've ever seen that TV show. And he redoes people's bars for them. And in this moment, he's talking to this owner of this bar. He says, "We are not in the bar business. We are not in the restaurant business. We're not in the marketing content creation business. We are in the human reaction business. The food and the drink is just a vessel to get us to a reaction." And I love that quote so much. I actually took my phone out and I recorded it. And I have it in my YouTube playlist hidden because I'll listen to it. But that's just a little quote. The smile is the human reaction that we're designing for. It's the stickiness that we want in product design.
Can you find that? Can you listen to it? Can you see people smile? How do you get feedback?
Right. That is the hardest part about software design is you set up, there's lots of apps that let you track what people are clicking on and where they're at they call them KPIs, key performance indicators in software. And that's what's not fun about software is your customers don't get to see you. You can do usability at testing and watch them. But that's the hardest part is you don't know when they're actually smiling unless you are able to, a UI designer and a great entrepreneur in general, both online and offline, is able to look at through their customers' eyes at their business, at their product, as they're walking into the business, everything, as a new person would see it. And they have that empathy of a new owner. And so as a UI designer, I'm going into my own software every couple of days with a brand new account, signing up, going, does this make sense? Does this button explain where I should click to? And you're trying to have those moments yourself, even though you've signed up for the product 4 days ago. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at your emails. And as someone who owns a brewery, I'm looking at my brewery going, is my signage clear? Do I want to walk there? Is the lighting right? Is it clean? Is there dirt? Should we pressure wash the sidewalk? All of those things. We're always looking at ourselves through the eyes of someone new, trying to predict their reaction. So in software, it's really hard because you have a disconnect. You have a whole, you're dealing with pixels. But at least in the restaurant business, in the bar business, you can see their reactions. You can see their smiles. Right. So it's a little more evident in real life.
Well, let's go to that next place in your entrepreneurial portfolio. Allan, you have history class, a brew pub, and you've got an interesting value proposition that includes storytelling, telling the stories of your community. And there's something about history and something about the local community. So please take us through that story.
Yeah. So we opened a brew pub, history class brewing company in downtown Panama City, which we opened that up during the pandemic. Perfect time to open a restaurant bar.
Exactly.
And so, if you really look at great brands, great businesses, they have figured out how to tell their stories of their product through their customers or through another mechanism. I don't know if you've ever seen a Nike ad where they've talked about the rubber compound in the shoes. I never have.
No.
I've never seen Delta Airlines talk about the foam in the seats. These brands don't talk about the thing that they're selling, talk about the stories around them. And I wanted the opportunity as a marketer. My favorite marketing is storytelling, like literal storytelling. I love telling stories. I mean, right now, what am I doing? I'm telling a story. Right. I'm telling a story. So telling stories is so much easier than beating someone's head and your customer's head in over our product's awesome. Our product's the best. Try this thing. Try that. If you're telling the stories, Less Accounting gave us the ability to tell the stories of entrepreneurs, even ones who aren't using Less Accounting, just telling the stories of entrepreneurs. And so I wanted to, when we talked about opening a brew pub, I didn't want to be talking about hops all day. Hops and barley and grain and water and this and, hamburger meat. And I wanted to tell stories. And the stories that I love are the ones about our community. If we're going to focus this brewery on our community, tribal marketing says you talk like your customers. What are they saying? In our county, our town is a small town. We have 130,000 people in our entire county, 30,000 in our entire town. And often small towns feel marginalized. They don't feel as cool as a big town. We don't feel as cool as Atlanta or Tampa or St. Augustine or, Santa Fe, New Mexico. We don't feel as cool as those towns because we haven't talked about the stories. We have great stories here. I think every small town, if you look at towns and how towns get started, your town founders were entrepreneurs. They were just a couple people who said, let's form a town. And their stories of, tragedy, deaths and diseases and fights and entrepreneurship. And so I wanted to tell those stories. And that's what history class is, gives us the ability to tell the stories of this town. And I think to love a town, you need to know a few of the stories of the town. So,
how do you tell them?
Well, we do it through video mostly. And we use, I have a video production company, which kind of spun up through Less Accounting, and just a world-class video editor, script writer named Eric Darnell. Just a phenomenal talent. There's plenty of people who can film video or edit video, but there's not people who can craft a story, short, tight stories. And Eric is just amazing at it. And so we tell the stories. We do we name a beer, Miss Jinx Lemon Drop Pale Ale. And when we tell who are the Jinx family, they're one of the first founders of our town. So the beer is a mechanism to sort of trick people into learning about our town. People, if we launched a history museum, people would go, ugh. But if you're talking about it around beer, it makes it feel cooler. And so we do it through video. We do it through the posters on the walls, and we do it through old pictures on the walls or old, our tables in the brewery were built out of what the original high school's gym floor. We salvaged the gym floor and cut up and made it into tables. And so you walk into history class and it feels not stuffy like a museum, but it feels like a brewery inside of a museum with stories on the wall. We have old TVs on the wall playing old, home movies and parade videos from our town from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way up, old videos.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of fun. And then what that does is it broadens our market in this small town. So typically people who wouldn't go to a brewery want to come to history class. And that reflects in our sales. Our product mix, we sell 10% non-alcoholic beverages. So that's 10% of our revenue probably would never come to a brewery. But they come to history class because it represents them and they want to learn more about the town, or that it kicks up nostalgia. Nostalgia is a human reaction. It's an emotion. And we're able to, sell some nostalgia along with beer.
People come because somebody told them the story and they come to see the stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking of stories, if someone were to look for you on YouTube, they might find Where Home, which was a video that you developed. What's the story behind Where Home?
When I hear someone else talk about my story, it's definitely odd to hear. It's just like, so, oh my goodness. With Less Accounting, the backstory on the Where Home is my wife and I and our children used to travel a lot with Less Accounting. We spent 12 weeks traveling around the different cities for fun. And so we'd stay in New York for 2 weeks. And I'd go see all my friends and I'd do a talk at a WeWork or another co-working space about entrepreneurship. And it was all part of the marketing. And, but we enjoyed these little downtowns. We enjoyed living in Manhattan for a few weeks. We were in Park Slope and we were in Lower East Side. We just enjoyed Chicago. We enjoyed this urban lifestyle. And we started looking at, when we sold Less Accounting, we started looking at our Panama City's small downtown. This is before history class was around. This was before we started buying real estate. And I thought it'd be cool to move in our little downtown. And our downtown is it's blighted. No one wants to move here, or they didn't, 4 years ago when we started buying property. And, we found this old building, and the old building was the dirt. This is the site of the first schoolhouse and church in this whole county. In the 40s, they took that building. They built the building that we're in now. And it was the Ford dealership auto repair center. And then it was basically storage for the next, 80 years. We bought it. And I just thought, I have this video production company. And I thought, man, how weird is it that a family is moving to a downtown that no one wants to move to? And we're going to build a house out of this old warehouse. And I just thought, man, we should film videos on Facebook. And then I thought, this could be a series on Netflix or something. I don't even know what that would mean, but let's film a little teaser video for that. And so we took our video production company, we filmed a little scissor reel for it. And, how do you pitch a TV show was something I Googled. And we had a couple calls with Netflix and Apple and those people, but we ended up going with the deal with Lowe's Home Improvement. YouTube and YouTube channels are now TV networks, and all brands pay for content, large and small. And inked a deal with Lowe's Home Improvement about videoing, and we produced it. We starred in it. We filmed it all during the construction project of our home in downtown. It's a 10-episode video series on the Lowe's Home Improvement YouTube channel. It's got about 1.4 million views. We filmed other stuff for Black & Decker and another series with the friends on Lowe's channel as well. But I didn't do that because it made a lot of money. That was in the same time we were doing consulting. And so I could have made a whole lot more money just doing software products. But the lifestyle business we had created, I want to give my children these odd experiences. They're homeschooled like I was, and I want to give them these odd experiences. And what is more odd than having to work on a sort of a set with your dad, and we're filming and we're cleaning up and we're going, and I just thought this is something sounds like fun. And it was a lot of work, and it could have made more money other places, but it's an experience that we can always look back on those videos. We still watch them today. Every 6 months, we'll watch them as a family and notice how much less gray hair I had then.
It's a nice thought you just came up with, which is odd experiences. I suspect many parents are looking to give their kids the opposite of odd experiences. They want to have mundane experience.
You know, if you look at education, like what is the purpose of education? The purpose of education is give someone the confidence in whatever level of education, high school, diploma, college, master's, whatever. So when they get to be an adult, they can handle situations that are thrown at them. And so I just want my children to be able to think on their feet, think for themselves, and know that they can handle whatever odd things thrown at them. They're wise enough to have these odd experiences. If you live a sheltered life in a classroom, you don't get those odd experiences. So we chose to homeschool our kids and give them, you know, the odd experience of living downtown and starting breweries and software companies and real estate and all that kind of stuff.
So from your great stories, Allan, I'm going to pick out 3 words that you used, and I'd ask you to comment on them for the benefit of the entrepreneurial folks who are listening. One is you talked about your portfolio of experiences, of businesses, and so on. Are you planning to continue to diversify it? And is that a portfolio of projects, multiple jobs, you said? Is that a good way to think about the entrepreneurial life?
Oh, interesting. I don't think I ever said the word portfolio.
Maybe I did.
It's just the life, right? This is a true lifestyle business. And even the real estate we're buying, it's purpose. And actually the brewery's entity name is Purpose Brewed, because it's much more than us selling beer. There's a purpose to what we're doing, and it's more than just money. I want to have a legacy when I'm gone. I want my kids to see what I've worked on. Software doesn't do that. So I don't really think of any of this as a portfolio. I think of it as a life. And that what you leave behind isn't your portfolio; it's your legacy. So I don't really ever use the word portfolio.
Okay, good. I apologize. Must have been my
No, you're good.
Here's one word you definitely did use, though, and that is risk, entrepreneurial risk. And you said you had maybe a different attitude or feeling towards risk than some other people using the word. So tell us how you feel about entrepreneurial risk.
Yeah, what that means is you look at other people's decisions in their career and life, and you're befuddled by them. And because you look at your life and you feel like you're being risk averse, starting businesses, working 2 jobs, doing things that you're not comfortable with. You know, I'm having to learn all kinds of new stuff with brewing business and opening restaurants and architecture plans and all kinds of things that have been easier just to be a software developer and designer. And so you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it's just a different assessment on risk. You know, people who, and there's nothing wrong with working a 40-hour job and watching football. I like to pick on that a lot, but that's pretty standard around here. But you just have a different there's just a different fire inside of you. I don't know of a better way to explain it. I certainly don't look at my life and go, I make this decision because there's less risk. Mm-hmm. I feel like wasted talent is also like everyone has this talent inside of them to do something special. And I don't want to waste my time on this planet and with the people around me. And, you know, with town revitalization and Panama City and the brewery in our downtown, I think if not us, then who? If we aren't the spark for our downtown, if we aren't able to do this thing, then who's going to do it? And you're almost doing, you know, if you think of yourself as having this set of skills in life and you have a purpose of where you're trying to go, you're almost doing yourself a disservice by not doing what you could do. Mm-hmm. And that's really why I look at it. It's just I don't ever say the word like this is the least risky thing. It just feels right. And other people's decisions in life don't make sense to me. Like it doesn't compute. And I think the easiest way to explain it is I look at risk differently because people think, you know, not doing these things, like what I'm doing is risky, and it doesn't feel risky. It feels right and feels normal and feels like, if not me, then who?
Yeah. The word that economists use instead of risk is uncertainty, which simply means I can't predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of gaps in my knowledge. So I go ahead and do it anyway if I'm an entrepreneur, and I see what happens, and then I adapt. And the Gallup survey I mentioned before talks about entrepreneurs as people who embrace risk or embrace uncertainty, rather. They understand it, they know it's there, and they say, terrific, bring it on. I'm going to do this. Is that a good thought? Embracing it?
Yeah, so I love to sail, and we actually redid a 30-foot sailboat. My wife and kids and I about before we bought this house. Everything's a small step to something else. But before we did the warehome, we rebuilt a sailboat, demasted the whole thing, and gutted the whole thing. I had no idea what I was doing, but I love to sail. And part of sailing is you look at your weather before you start. That's your business plan. You make a plan of where we're going to course, we're going to go to. We're going to go to this over here, and you sail it. But at any moment, things change. You can't predict the weather all the time. And so, what I love about sailing is that you can't predict it. At any moment, you got to go to Plan B, C, or D, and that's what's so much fun about it, as opposed to just driving down the street in a car. And so, sailing is a lot like entrepreneurship. That's what I feel like. But I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, it's
Okay.
being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, I think a long distance runner would say the same thing, right? You got to it's just, that's a physical thing, and entrepreneurship is a mental game most of the time.
Yep. Well, I'm always looking for a summing up, Allan, and boy, you've said such a lot. That's great advice and great perspective. If you were talking to a 20-year-old who's thinking about what you call the entrepreneurial life, is there anything you can add in your summing up to all of the great advice you've given us? How would you get them
Well, I
started?
hate thinking of any of this as advice because, the people, everyone has a different life and context to their story. This is just my story. Some of my favorite things I've heard that inspire me are like, you are writing the story that your grandkids are going to tell about you. And what are you doing to write that story? You are the author of your own story. And so I love that quote. I wish, one of the things I wish I would have known years ago, that I learned it earlier in life than most people do, is when you're making any decision, you have to look at yourself in 20 years. And does that make sense in 20 years? Is that where you're wanting to go? Can you see yourself doing that thing? And so really people kind of jump to things that feel good now, but they're not building things that last or will be around, that, and businesses are so hard to build and grow. Like if you don't see yourself doing something for a long time, then what's the point of doing it? I would just say use your gut. You develop a really good sense of, and that only comes from experiences. Wisdom comes from experiences. It comes from making mistakes. I made, my goodness, if you talked to my parents, you could hear all my mistakes I've made. But I'm a work in progress. Every business is a work in progress. Every business is just it's like a little baby, taking care of a little baby. It's messy, it's dirty. You're dealing with a lot of shit, and you're doing the best that you can.
Well, Allan, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your outlook and your philosophy. It's been really helpful. We use a lot of dry words in economics, and what we're trying to do is bring that thinking to life.
Yeah.
And you have definitely brought it to life. So we appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Economics for Entrepreneurs is a production of the Mises Institute. To explore more content like this, visit Mises.org. That's MISES.org. For more from Hunter Hastings, check out hunterhastings.com.